AM 630. WMAL.
Our goal is not to build a country in America's image or to eradicate every vestige of the Taliban. These objectives would require many more years, many more dollars, and most importantly, many more American lives. Our goal is to destroy Al-Qaeda, and we are on a path to do exactly that.
That was the president making a surprise trip late yesterday to Afghanistan, where he signed an agreement with Hamid Karzai. Joining us on the phone now is Richard Miniter, who is a national security, terrorism expert, and investigative journalist, all-around good guy, who got up early this morning to answer our questions about all this. Okay, so Richard, here's my number one question. Is this agreement, I mean, the reason for going was to sign this agreement with Hamid Karzai. So is this an agreement something of merit? Was it important? Did we get anything out of it? Or was it just an attempt for the president to go and burnish his national security and foreign policy credentials in an election year?
Well, if you listen to Senator Jim Inhofe, and I think he's got a point here, this was essentially a campaign stop in Kabul. I mean, this is, if you are looking at this from the putting together Obama's left-wing or progressive coalition to get reelected, he doesn't have a lot to hand to them on foreign policy. Guantanamo is still wide open. Civilian trials have failed in New York. And this is getting us out of Iraq and Afghanistan is the only thing left that he has to hand the liberal base. On the other hand, if you look at the guts of this, there's two big news items which have pretty much been ignored. One is the president came out and said very directly in his talk last night that the administration is openly negotiating with the Taliban. That's news. That's not getting the attention that it should. Yes, they've been hinting for months that they have, through intermediaries, been talking to the Taliban. Of course, you could wonder why they're talking to the Taliban at all. Why not just talk directly to their paymasters in Pakistan, the ISI, the Inter-Services Institute, which is their intelligence service, which has been backing the Taliban since their creation in 1994. In fact, the Taliban was created by Pakistan's intelligence services, a fact that's widely recognized in that part of the world and in the intelligence community here. If there's going to be some negotiated settlement there, why negotiate with the middleman? Why not negotiate with someone who's in a position to make a deal?
Haven't we been, though, dealing with the Taliban, talking with the Taliban, negotiating with the Taliban for years?
Usually it's been done through the Afghan government. Karzai has opened discussions with the Taliban, with individual Taliban commanders as early as 2005, 2006. But as far as the administration directly talking to the Taliban, U.S. diplomats and military officials talking to the Taliban, that's news.
Okay. Now, what the other thing that caught my attention was, all right, we're going to be there for 10 more years, but there's apparently a deal that says we won't use Afghanistan as a launching point to attack another country. Is that true, and why would we make such a deal on that nature?
Yeah, that seems like an extraordinary concession.
Yes.
Given that the drone attacks in Pakistan have tripled, and most of those drone attacks are believed to originate in Afghanistan, where the U.S. has relatively secure bases. And that seems like an extraordinary thing for us to give away. And bear in mind, too, that Pakistan is where two-thirds of senior al-Qaeda have been killed or captured anywhere in the world, in Pakistan. That's more than Afghanistan and Iraq combined, by the way. So to give up that advantage, that drone advantage, into Pakistan just sounds ludicrous, because we know that often attacks originate on U.S. forces from the Pakistan side of the Durand Line.
I was unclear of whether or not that was a direct attack on a state, the government, versus an attack on terrorists involved in that state or operating in that state, whether or not you could still make these runs into Pakistan or to another country. But I thought to me it was, we won't use Afghanistan as a launching point to go into Iran. Did I read that wrong, or does that mean we can't use anything out of Afghanistan to attack in any other country?
My understanding is that you can't use anything in Afghanistan to attack any other country. And for drone attacks, the main target would be Pakistan. By the way, the Pakistanis are very sensitive about sovereignty. If you look at the pilots' maps for Afghanistan, Pakistan, there are all sorts of warnings along the Durand Line saying even civilian flights that go into Pakistani airspace have the risk of being shot down.
I want to ask you a little bit about the events of the last few days where the president has, some have suggested, spiked the football a little too much about the anniversary of the passing of Osama bin Laden. You any thoughts on that?
I've got a couple. First of all, He's in Afghanistan on the one-year anniversary of the death of Osama bin Laden. But, his speech last night would have been a much bigger splash if he didn't tell us last year that bin Laden was dead. If he had, after bin Laden's death, given the intelligence services a full year to exploit the intelligence, the more than 10 hard drives and piles of documents and other computer equipment that they were able to pull out of the bin Laden compound. If they had a year to work in secrecy and swoop in and then surprise al-Qaeda leaders around the world and disrupt their operations both financially and in manpower sense, that would have been an enormous advantage to the United States.
Are you suggesting that because they made it public and they couldn't wait to make the announcement and reap the political benefit thereof, that we really missed some other opportunities to get to denigrate and destroy al-Qaeda to a greater degree?
That's right. I mean, we missed an enormous opportunity to degrade al-Qaeda much further because they would not have known for weeks or months that bin Laden is dead if we hadn't announced it. In fact, it's most likely that the al-Qaeda first learned of bin Laden's death from American news broadcasts, from the president's own speech.
Do you think it's possible that you could have kept that a secret for a year?
Certainly, the U.S. intelligence service has kept many things a secret for a long period of time.
Well, the U.S.,
but in warfare, this is vital. That keeping such secrets is absolutely vital.
Yeah, but isn't it possible that somebody from Pakistan would have made that public? I mean, it wasn't just us who knew that bin Laden was there. I mean, my guess is that somebody from Pakistan could have leaked that as well.
Well, the Pakistanis, have their own. Their relationship here is very complicated, and what they want to say and what they want to admit in their own media is very difficult. If you look at it, there was an interesting story in Pakistan's English-language newspaper, The Nation, about 5 years ago, where they interviewed a number of top Pakistani generals, hoping, they said, this is on the record interview, named interviews, they said they hope bin Laden is not killed in their country or killed at all. So the politics of bin Laden and whether he's alive or dead in Pakistan is something that was very complicated in Pakistan's politics. They might be prepared to ignore it as well. Also, if the residents of the compound were simply to disappear, be helicoptered out or what have you, I mean, there's a way to design that operation, to minimize the evidence that Pakistan would have if they wanted to go public about it. But given the politics of that and the differences between the intelligence and the military and the political leadership and the factions within the political leadership, they might just want to ignore it too.
Richard Miniter, always great to have you on. Thanks a lot.